Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Shaken and Not Stirred. Tonight, we have finally made it into the Roger Moore era of the James Bond series, so that is exciting. And also the eighth James Bond film, if you are counting. But before we get to that, how you doing, Adam? How you doing tonight?
Pretty well. It's been a tough week, but got through it. Tough couple weeks, and I am ready to rock some Roger Moore because he is my guy for James Bond.
She sure is, and frankly, this is not a football show, but I could go off on some football for a little while. But we're not going to.
We can do a whole another hour show on that too.
And maybe one day we might just scream.
Well, hopefully the Commanders make us feel a little bit better tonight.
Yeah, and that was the exciting thing. Is this morning I go week to week to see what the games are, and I'm like, shit, that's tonight. And I had it pregame on before we started here, so excited to watch that when we are done. But my good man, what have you been watching lately? Anything new?
Yes, actually, they did start something new.
Yes.
Started a show on Netflix called Gypsy.
Ooh.
And it's from 20. There's only 10 episodes. It's only done one season, it looks like, but it's from 2017. And it stars Naomi Watts and Billy Crudup.
Oh, I got it pulled up right here. Yes.
Yeah, and she plays a psychiatrist who gets kind of involved in her, not so much involved in all of her patients' lives, but a couple of them. And it's pretty awesome. Like I've only watched 3 episodes so far, but like last night I had to go to bed and I was just like, man, I want to really get one more in. So I definitely recommend it. They're about hour-long episodes, 50 minutes or so.
Just reading the general synopsis here, definitely looks like right up my alley and something that could even get Katie to watch too here. I mean, Billy Crudup, he's got some good stuff, so I'm always in. Naomi Watts, both.
Yeah, always
really good.
Guy. So yeah, definitely. That's why I wanted to check it out. I never heard of it until this past year, and I've been meaning to watch it, so I just started doing it the other night.
That is really cool.
What about you?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm really kind of digging into a couple different things. There is the new Alien series that is on FX. I've been slowly digging through that. That's pretty good. And if you like Alien, I was actually going to ask you, what do you think about this new? Have you seen the trailer for this new Paul Thomas Anderson movie that's coming out?
Yeah, with Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah, what do you think? One battle after another. Is this something you think you're going to go see?
I will definitely go see it. I've been seeing like the various movies that I go see has had that as a trailer pretty much each time. So I am kind of excited about that. You know, I do love Paul Thomas Anderson. I love Leonardo DiCaprio, Benicio del Toro, all those guys. And I think it's a very good pairing of actors and director. So I don't think you can really go wrong with this. So I have high expectations for it.
Yeah, that's one I think is going to be good. I just see the trailer, and I think you had talked to me about, sent a text. Mr. Daniel Day-Lewis is returning to the screen in his son's film, which just I guess did very well at the wherever it was. I think it was the Toronto Film Festival, somewhere along there. Did pretty well with the people watching it, so that's got to be something you're interested in too, as a Daniel Day-Lewis fan.
Yeah, and I think everyone kind of can recognize how great Daniel Day-Lewis is. So I think this is I think I liked Phantom Thread more than a lot of other people did. And that was the last film he did. And it's been a nice handful of years. But we all know the other stuff that he's done has been great. And obviously you just talked about Paul Thomas Anderson. You know, he was just unbelievable in There'll Be Blood. You know, and he's worked with, Martin Scorsese and Gangs of New York. He's done all sorts of stuff. And Age of Innocence, I'm a big Age of Innocence guy, so I'm excited to see it. I knew he would come out of retirement sooner or later. It just took his son, I guess, to get him to do it. So we'll see how that dynamic works, but I have a feeling his son's going to kind of let him just do his thing and go along for the ride.
And before we move on really quick, again, you brought up Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. I very rarely watch a movie over and over and over, but this movie has been on Paramount Plus Showtime So when I just see what they got playing, it's always on, and that movie's really good. Like, it feels like it's a movie that could have been in different it could have been a movie made in the '70s, I feel like. It could have been made in different periods.
Well, and I was kind of hoping, like I said, a long time ago, I kind of shunned off the Oscars when Daniel Day-Lewis didn't win Best Actor for Gangs of New York.
Mhm.
But he also, like, I thought There'll Be Blood was a better movie than No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
And that's just my personal opinion.
It is. And I
Yeah,
love the Coen brothers. I could put a lot of their movies
great
on.
movie, but it's like, that if that's a 9, this There'll Be Blood is a 10. It may be, like, to me, the best movie that's come out in the past. I mean, what was it, 2008?
Yeah.
2000, something like that. 2007,
Right around
2008, right around there. So I think it was 2008. So
2007.
2007. Okay. So he I think that may be the best movie I have seen in this century. Like, overall, like the best feature motion. My favorite one to watch all the time, but like the best, like, feature motion picture.
Well, I just pick, like, being it on, I've just been able to see and pick so much stuff out, from the performances to the directing style to a lot of that stuff. But always cool. So hopefully some of that's in this new movie with Leo, and well, Sean Penn's in it. That should be interesting. So
Yeah,
sign me up.
phenomenal. So it's going to be. I'm pretty sure it's going to be really good. It's just how matter. Maybe I shouldn't raise the expectations too high to be because even if it's great, I might be like, well, it wasn't quite as great as I thought it was going to be. But either way, it's going to be good.
Well, that brings us to our feature of the evening here, Live and Let Die, James Bond, and we have a new James Bond at that, Roger Moore. So before Live and Let Die comes out, what's a little bit of the background right before this starts? Like, is Connery even in suggestion to come back for this movie?
Connery was in suggesting to come back for the movie. They definitely wanted him to. Diamonds Are Forever did pretty well at the box office, so they saw kind of a bounce back from You Only Live Twice, or not You Only Live Twice, from Our Majesty's Secret Service. And they offered him a ridiculous amount to do Diamonds Are Forever. If you remember, he got like 1.25 million to do that, which at that time was just kind of an obscene sum. This time they offered Connery 5.5 million to do this film, but at this point he was ready to do other things, and he had enough by then, so he turned it down. And it was probably a good idea for the series in general and for him in general. I think he made the right move turning that down, even though it's 5.5 million. Obviously, he made enough money over his lifetime in several different films from that point forward to where it really didn't make a difference. And I think he kind of played out his role as Bond. If you watch Diamonds Are Forever, you kind of felt it was like time to go for him. So they were looking for some new blood.
Well, that's kind of what it feels like, honestly. Even when you just, if you've never seen Live and Let Die, but you just start reading what it's about, you're looking at the pictures. I mean, Bond looks so much more fresh and ready to go than Connery did at the end of Diamonds Are Forever, which I think is what makes this a little bit more of an exciting installment in the series.
Yeah, and it's different. It differs from the other Connery movies because it kind of gets away, at least this one, because later on it'll kind of go back to this, but this one kind of gets away from the large scale, chaotic, basically threat of like world domination, world disaster, things like that. This is just basically about heroin growing and smuggling and a whole operation of like that nature. So it's a much smaller scale. And when I say smaller scale, I mean they even filmed it on a smaller scale. They use a different since not since Gold, for instance, Thunderball, they've been using like Panavision anamorphic, like widescreen cameras for these films. This one they kind of went back with like a regular spherical lens, and so it's a little more claustrophobic than the other ones, and the locations aren't quite as exotic. They are in this island, a made-up island of San Monique. It's the first time in the Bond series there's actually an island that's or country that's made up, and that would happen again later on in License to Kill. But it was the first time that the Bond ever did something like that. And it's the first time like a James Bond series, I think maybe the last time they ever dealt in like anything supernatural, with all the voodoo going on and everything. So they went a different route here. They got Roger Moore, who was offered the part when Connery was ready to go the first time, and he was doing The Saint at that time, so he really couldn't get out of that. And so he continued doing The Saint, and then he got his turn just now. They even looked at making Bond American for a while. They offered Clint Eastwood, Burt Reynolds, Adam West, a few other guys, to come in and possibly just make Bond American. And oddly enough, Roger Moore is the first James Bond who's actually British, because Connery was Scottish, Lazenby was Australian. This guy is actually a British.
They got it right. There you go.
So a British agent's actually British. So that's pretty cool. So he was 45 at this time. So when Lazenby did his first one, he was 29. When Connery did his first one, he was 31. Roger Moore is much older than that, and that kind of went against the Ian Fleming novels, because he always wanted like Bond kind of be like in his mid 30s or so. He was an older Bond. Now, he didn't look 45 at the time. If you start watching his movies, you do see more age throughout them, like anybody else. By the time he did A View to a Kill, it was kind of like, oh man, this guy looks he was 58, but he looked like he was like 70 almost. So he got out of it. But at this point, he's 45, looks great, looks awesome. I think his wardrobe in this movie is cool as hell too.
It is pretty cool.
So it's just definitely a new look on it, and I just think like what he brings to the Bond character was always kind of what I wanted to see out of James Bond, and I may be biased because I liked him as those movies the most when I was young. But he signed on, and they got him to do this, and he seemed like he was having a good time with it, unlike Connery, like the last like two movies he did. And it was completely different, portrayal than George Lazenby, obviously, as well. This guy had a lot of fun doing it, and that would kind of be the pattern for his movies, would be very much lighter and larger adventures, and the basically the formulas, they didn't change at all, but the stories did a bit. There's no more Spectre. Spectre only pops up very briefly later on in the Moore series, which we'll get to that point. But as of now, this was a kind of a different take on James Bond, and they took advantage of the kind of the early 70s blaxploitation films. They kind of went that route. Even some of the actors that they got into this movie were in some of those blaxploitation movies that were popular at the time. So the dynamic worked. It grossed a little bit less than or about 8 million less, I'd say, than Diamonds Are Forever, because to people it still wasn't Sean Connery. But overall, as a financial success, the budget was still around 7 million or so. They kind of stuck it around there.
Yep.
And like I said, the locations weren't anything exotic. It was probably the dullest of the locations in any Bond films, because I mean, you had a lot of New York, Harlem, that's like Island. Yeah, they had Manhattan, and then they had Harlem, so that was the New York scenes. And then you had a little bit of New Orleans. Then you kind of have the Bayou, and then the fake island of San Monique, which is pretty much just a movie set. So they really toned it down when it came to the locations, which that was kind of one of the disappointing things in this film, because Bond movies are known for their exotic locations and going everywhere all over the world. But for this movie, it worked, and I enjoyed it. It is one of my, it's in the top half of my Roger Moore Bond films, I'd say. I don't know where you'd rank it, but
I think the movie is just, it almost takes off into another like level of cool, almost like here we are in 1973, and this is where Diamonds Are Forever. It doesn't feel like the year it came out, where this one, like you said, we got a better Bond here, I think, at this point in the series. And we got Guy Hamilton back. I mean, he did direct Diamonds Are Forever, which had a lot of fun parts. You like to imagine what would that movie been like if they started with Roger Moore there. That could have been something even better, possibly.
It might have been, but at the time, though, it's probably good that Connery came back, because who knows? If they wouldn't have accepted Roger Moore,
that's true.
After Lazenby, then that could have just killed the series altogether. So I think it's probably good that Connery did come back for that film.
Yes. But go on.
So yeah, and then they had Guy Hamilton back. Tom Mankiewicz, who wrote Diamonds Are Forever, the screenplay for it, came back for this one too, and he had his own ideas for the film. I think he had a little more freedom on this one, and so he wrote it again. Like the Guy Hamilton directed it, so he still had the same style. So it didn't deviate from that very much. I think it's just a better film than Diamonds Are Forever. It's not quite as zany. I mean, there's some zany stuff in this because, like I said, it deals with like the voodoo culture and religion and stuff of that nature, and the blaxploitation. But I think they really blended it, really well in this movie to make it work.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm also a really big fan of some of the Yaphet Kotto. I'm a fan of his and other movies he's in. So as a young kid, when you look at who's in these Bond movies and you could recognize other actors in it, I think he did a good job in this movie.
Yeah, you mentioned Yaphet Kotto. He was in. You mentioned Alien show earlier. He was in the first Alien. He's a great actor. He was only 33 when he did this movie.
That's crazy. So
he looks older, but I mean, he was. I think he played a very cool, calm villain in this one. He kind of played a few parts. Well, not really a few parts. He had like basically a dual role as Mr. Big, who was not really Mr. Big. He was really Kananga, who was, but like it was a good casting call for them to bring him in. He was the first, and this is going to be a trend for this film. He was the first Black actor to be basically have a lead role in a Bond film. And be, obviously he was the main villain, and there were several actors in this movie who were firsts for the Bond franchise as well. So, which kind of brings me to like the casting for this one. I usually say the usual suspects are back, and I start, saying Lois Maxwell, Bernard Lee, who are both in this, but Desmond Llewellyn was not in this. Q was not in this film. He is referenced once at the very beginning. They say Q fixed your watch, and when they gave his watch back to him, Bond, but he had other. I guess he was doing something else at the time. I'm not quite exactly sure what it was that would keep him from being in a James Bond movie. But he didn't. This was until he passed away. I think The World Is Not Enough was his last movie with Pierce Brosnan, all the way through from when he started in From Rush with Love to The World Is Not Enough. This is the only film he did not appear in. He appeared in every single one of them besides that. Jane Seymour was the main Bond girl in this one. We see right here. And she was about 21, 22 when this came out. Probably 21 when they filmed it, 22 when it came out. And she just looks unbelievable in this movie. With her attire, I mean, that is just a gorgeous woman right there.
Yeah, and I think
she still looks great for her age, but back then, like, man, you saw her on screen the first time, you're like, okay.
I think it's the first one where I feel like it's the movie's very natural, I guess. There's supernatural in it, but the filming of it, they went back to a natural than, let's say, Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah, it definitely felt that way. And she wasn't in there trying to steal any scenes or anything. She did kind of end up being the damsel in distress role after a while, where at the beginning, she's basically like a tarot card reader who is a big part of what Yaphet Kotto was doing, his character Kananga. And she was basically helping him with it. And then she fell for Bond. That whole thing happened. And then basically she switched sides because she couldn't resist Roger Moore's charm, and who could? On the left there, you see the character Rosie Carver. And Rosie Carver, she was played by Gloria Hendry, who was also in, a few blaxploitation films from the early 70s. And she was the first black Bond girl, like main Bond girl. There was a one in Diamonds Are Forever, but they had a very small role. She was the first one that had a significant amount of screen time. So that was kind of a first for a Bond film as well. And it sounds silly, but it was kind of gutsy back, then, even though it was the 70s now, to do something like that. Not just have a black female in a role like that, but have a black female with a white British guy. Like, people back then just didn't see that as, that's not proper or whatever. So now, obviously, Jane Seymour kind of ran with it, the being the main Bond girl, and that's fine. But Rosie Carver, they didn't really give her, unfortunately, her part wasn't written very well. She's kind of a bumbling agent, and she ends up being like a double agent. And I don't think the script did her any favors. So she kind of did with what she could. Her part of the movie isn't the most exciting in the world. And it's other than it being historical for, her being the first, Bond girl of color to do something like that. The role itself is kind of forgettable. But it didn't really detract from the film, so it was fine. And you had, besides Yafet Koto, you had his henchman. You had Julius Harris, who played Teehee, who had the mechanical arm. And he was a cool, calm character in this movie too, but kind of menacing. Julius Harris was he was in The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. The first one, obviously. He was in the 1976 King Kong film with Jeff Bridges and Charles Grodin version. He was even later on in Darkman with Liam Neeson. And then by far his most artistic film.
Who directed Darkman?
I forgot who directed Darkman.
Sam Raimi.
Oh, Sam Raimi did it.
So
I haven't seen Darkman in probably since not long after it came out, but I remember.
Me too. Honestly, me
Isn't that
too.
weird though? Like, that's a movie I reference often, but I'm like, I haven't seen that movie in forever.
That's true. Me either. That's not one that you see on streaming very often, but it's one that when you were a kid, that
I gotta
movie.
Watch it again. That's
Larry Drake playing the bad guy is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I only knew him, from like L.A. Law, and he was a completely different character than I saw with Darkman. And you're like, oh, that's more menacing. But yeah, so Julius Harris was in that, and by far his best feature motion picture artistic film, he was in Maniac Cop 3. So we got to give him credit for that. And then the other henchman was Baron Samedi. He was a voodoo priest, and he was played by Jeffrey Holder. And Jeffrey Holder he didn't have the acting chops, but he was more of a Broadway guy. He was a dancer, and he grew up dancing, and he was on Broadway, but he had a very deep voice, and he was very, so he was perfect for that role. It was kind of disappointing how they dispatched him at the end, but because it really built up this fight between him and Bond, and it was over literally like in 2 seconds. So, although technically not, because in the end you see him on the train and everything, so you don't know if he was really dead or if it was really him or what was going on. And other than that, you had David Hedison was playing Felix Leiter this time, and he's probably, to me, the most memorable Felix Leiter because he actually reprised the role years later in which would be 16 years later in License to Kill. He's the only Bond actor, but besides Jeffrey Wright. Jeffrey Wright in the Daniel Craig series reprised it a few times, but this guy skipped that much time in between and had other actors playing Leiter, and then he came and played him again in License to Kill, where he had a much larger part of the plot was involved what happened to him and his wife. But in this one, he has a pretty prominent role. And let's see who else was in that. Other than that, really, I got to mention Clifton James. Clifton James played a very goofy sheriff in this one, Southern sheriff.
One of the owner of the White Sox in the movie.
I'll get to that. And he, typical Southern sheriff, and he kind of had some like racial undertones there by calling like a couple black guys boy. He's like, "You trying to do this, boy?" But he was in this. He ended up coming back from the Man with a Golden Gun in a comical part, and he was in. But before this, he was in Cool Hand Luke. He was in the second Bad News Bears movie, Breaking Training. He was kind of the same character in the same role in Superman 2 when at the beginning of that film. He was in The Untouchables. He was district attorney, I believe, in The Untouchables. And he was in, like you said, he played Charles Comiskey in 8 Men Out. So Clifton James was actually in he's got a pretty good filmography. He was never any starring roles in much of anything, but he's one hell of a supporting actor with some, like I said, a cool filmography to him. But yeah, that kind of rounds out the cast for it. I mean, there's a couple other players in it, but those are the main ones, and they're the ones that kind of carry the story along. There's a couple parts of the movie where the plot kind of slows down a bit, but for the most part, it moves along okay, and you don't feel bored during it. And when the movie's over, you're pretty satisfied. But I was going to ask you what you thought, since you are a man of music as well. What did you think of the music in this film?
Oh, I mean, it might be shallow of me, but I find this, I mean, at least the lead song, to be probably my favorite of all the James Bond lead songs. I mean, it's the one I've listened to so many times, and the cover of Guns N' Roses too.
Mm-hmm.
I just like, because they have the fake Caribbean island or wherever they're at, and because the song has like a Caribbean breakdown, I like how he was able to work that into the song, and that kind of flows through the rest of the soundtrack, really.
Yeah, it's a good song. I kind of put it's not my type of Bond song so much. I'm more of a guy who likes the themes from like Moonraker, The Spy Who Loved Me, You Only Live Twice.
And I think it's because I love the Beatles, or I've listened to so much rock music. So like when I get my introduction to that, honestly, what is my introduction to James Bond? It's that song. It really is, because I listened to that song a whole lot before I actually ever watched a James Bond movie. And then actually, when I think my dad or brought it up to him, he's the one who started bringing up, oh, you know who's in Live and Let Die? Yafet Kato from Alien. And then it started getting in my head, oh man, I got to check this out. And then obviously, as you stated, Jane Seymour. I get what you're saying, though. It's definitely not your quintessential Bond song or sound, I guess, from the ones that we talked about prior to this.
No, and really, I don't know if it was Broccoli or Saltzman. Like, one of them didn't even want McCartney to do the song.
I could believe it.
And McCartney's like, well, no, I'm not doing it or giving the song if I can't do it. Like, so that'd have been a big, I don't know, it probably a big mistake for that. But that's also a selling point too. Paul McCartney, you got to think, in 1973, when everyone's clamoring for the Beatles to get back together, and he's so huge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So getting him to do this, I mean, you think of all the people who did the music before. You can talk about Shirley Bassey or whoever, Tom Jones, did Thunderball, but none of them were on the level of what Paul McCartney was. I mean, he's a friggin' Beatles. So like, everyone was kind of like, well, if he's doing the theme for this, maybe I'll go see this. That could have raked in a handful more millions of dollars for the film itself. So the fact that they didn't want him to do the song is just asinine to me. So
when you think that this becomes the first song nominated for Academy Award, okay, and it lost to The Way We Were by Barbra Streisand, which is not a better song than this song. I'm just saying it's not. So it should have, in my mind, won, and that would have been something.
Yeah. So, and the thing is, with what this movie was about and the graphics they used in the intro and throughout it was cool. It really did work. Like I said, it's not one of my quintessential Bond themes. Like I said, I'm more of the ilk that likes the Octopussy theme, which I couldn't say that in the actual song, so they use a different song. But like, Moonraker and things like that, like that's That makes me like those are my favorite like Bond songs. But something like this, something I can compare to this too is Duran Duran doing "A View to a Kill," which is an awesome song.
Yeah.
No, it's not
Probably one of my second favorite ones.
Yeah, so
Everyone, it's
like
just my love of rock music, but I get what you're saying. Why
but
it's
and
not
that's
yours?
the
Yeah.
few times they integrated that into this until probably I don't know, Shirley Manson and did a Brosnan one, Sheryl Crow did Tomorrow Never Dies. But I mean nothing like not until about probably Casino Royale they have something like actual rock like this.
Yeah.
So when Chris Cornell did Casino Royale, that was kind of the first time that kind of came back. All the other films before and after that were really I mean, Die Another Day of Madonna. I don't even want to talk about Die Another Day right now. Yeah, just forget that movie. We'll cover it, and then once we cover it, just pretend like we
bury it.
Yeah, we're doing it because we have to, but or we'll just make fun of it the whole time. We can just totally just turn it around.
That's what I like about the show. Some we
shit
get
on
real
Die Another Day.
serious,
Yeah,
some we laugh, some we make fun of. I mean,
and I'll still watch it when it's on TV because I'm stupid and I'll watch it. But it is what it is. Like it's Shawshank by James Bond movies. This is the way it goes.
Now, what's funny here, real quick, is do you think they like originally? I was reading here is that they wanted like Shirley Bassey to sing "Live and Let Die." Like, would you have liked it better if she actually sang the song without McCartney's voice? It was her voice instead, or would you still feel the same way, or it actually could be worse?
No, I'm have to hear her sing it, but I think it's still better with McCartney, and I'll tell you why. During the film, you do have another singer on stage singing the song because that's what the producers wanted in the first place. So they still stuck it in the film, and it was fine. She did it perform it on stage, but like the way she performed, like if you heard like that version, that is not the version you want for this film to open the movie. That's for sure. So I think they made a good decision with Paul McCartney. Like I said, I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts. Like what was the right thing to do, both financially and like for a guy like, hey, can we have your song? But we don't want you doing it. You're a friggin' Beatle, but we don't want you doing it. We're gonna have someone else do that. No, I tell McCartney, I tell those guys to fuck off, whatever. So, but yeah, this is like I'm looking at what you have up here. That's the picture of Bond's kitchen. This is one of the few times you see Bond's actual. They say it's his apartment, but I think like when they're going in that door, it does not look like an apartment. That looks like a house of some sort or like a condo or something. It is much more than just an apartment. But as the first time since Dr. No, you see, and Dr. No almost looks like a hotel room instead. But it's the first time since then you actually see the interior of Bond's house, which you don't see again until like, I believe you don't see it again until Spectre comes out with Daniel Craig.
I think that I mean, they should have brought this up a little sooner. Is just the overall plot of you have heroin, okay, you got voodoo, you know what I mean, and you got a new Bond. It's and it's 1973, and they're really actually, which is cool, running with using a lot of the coolness that was going on in that time period.
Yeah, it was good for that time, but this movie could only have been made probably when it was.
That's what I mean. There you go.
You couldn't have done this. You would have had to change a lot of things around to make this film, and it did differ from the novel because the novel, the villain was called, had a different name. So Yaphet Kotto, who you see right here, his name in the film was Kananga. But the only reason why his name Kananga is because the guy whose crocodile farm they borrowed for the film was named Ross Kananga. So they took that guy's name and used it for because they thought it was a cool name for a villain, which is a cool name. Now, as alter ego, I guess, in New Orleans, when he has all the makeup and stuff on, is this Mr. Big, which isn't very creative at all, but, whatever. It serves its purpose. But this one, you have this always, like I said, there's always like callbacks to Austin Powers and such. But this is one of those overly elaborate death traps he tries to put in that's easily escapable. And this movie has probably, I couldn't even say probably, has the most ridiculous villain death scene in the history of Bond villain death scenes. I don't get what they were thinking. I don't understand. You could have killed this dude off screen and just heard it, and it would have been better than what they did. So to give people context who haven't seen this, Bond has these, they're like shark. It's basically a shark gun, and the bullets like in themselves are, they have compressed gas in them, compressed air, or whatever. And he ends up killing the villain by shoving this into his mouth and like making him like chew on it, or like, you know, bite it, and it goes off. But not only does it just kill him, it makes this dude expand, blow up like to the ceiling, and then he looks like a rubber, like he looks like a Rose Bowl float. That's basically what he looks like. And then he explodes like a balloon. No blood, no gore, no nothing like that, which this is what would have caused. This is why I'm saying you could have had that guy explode kind of off screen, Jane Seymour like look away or something. And you could have done anything. But they went with that. So,
and I remember when we first met, and I was going to start digging into this. That was one of the very first things you told me about just the James Bond in general. And I'm glad you just brought it up here again. I love it. I love that part.
Yeah, it's like every time I see it, you kind of like cringe at it, but you start laughing. You're like, oh, you know, that part's coming. So, but yeah, it's probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen. And I thought a lot of this stuff, you know, like in Diamonds Are Forever and like You Only Live Twice was ridiculous. But this was like jump the shark, no pun intended, because it's a shark thing, over the top ridiculous. So, but whatever. It's like I said, it's not one of those things that makes you hate the film. It's like, man, why would you do that? But I mean, look at Roger Moore right there. That dude looks awesome.
That's what I'm trying to say, you know. And, you know, do you have any trivia for Live and Let Die?
Yeah, so there's a few things I want to throw in here. Yaphet Kotto, who we've already talked about several times, he was only 33, like I said, when he filmed this. And so this came out in 1973. It was still not a great time to be Black in America in a lot of places, and especially in the public eye. He was not allowed to appear at the premiere of this film due to, they thought would be potential backlash as a Black guy being the villain in the movie or whatever. But I don't know how they really stopped him from doing it. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't know how you really ban a guy from being, but he was, either way, I guess he wasn't invited. So that kind of sucks, because he was great in this. I thought he was really cool up until his death scene, which wasn't his fault. He was cool. He was cool as hell in this. He was a very cool customer. He was, he had a nice scheme going. And of course, the way he explained it to Bond, his mannerisms, his whole demeanor. He can go from angry, or he can go from like 0 to 10, whether he's calm to angry. Like he was just a cool villain. I thought he's one of the better villains I've seen in a while, because pretty much the only villains you've seen for a handful of movies now is whatever version of Ernst Stavro Blofeld we got. Mm-hmm. Because after Thunderball and Largo, you had You Only Live Twice, you had On Her Majesty's Secret Service, you had Diamonds Are Forever, there's Blofeld. So now you finally had someone different, and I thought he played that very well. This is, like I said, I already mentioned, this is the first Bond film to have a fictional island nation, and the next one being License to Kill. As far as I know, I may be missing something, but those are the only Bond films that actually have fictional nations in them. And there you see right there is Jeffrey Holder playing Baron Samedi. Very briefly, when James Bond first talks to Felix Leiter, and they're zooming into like the CIA headquarters in New York, in the background, if you look back there, you see a mostly finished World Trade Center, still under construction. The top of it is not finished yet. Shane Rimmer, who I mentioned in other movies, he was in Diamonds Are Forever briefly. He was also the submarine captain in The Spy Who Loved Me, and he was also in like Rollerball. He had a little bit part in Batman Begins. He voiced Hamilton, who was played by Robert Dix. He was the first guy in this film you see get murdered in New Orleans, when he asks, whose funeral is it? And the guy's like, it's your funeral, That guy was voiced by Shane Rimmer. I don't know why they didn't use Robert Dix's voice. Robert Dix acted in several movies. He was in Forbidden Planet, but I don't know why they decided to dub his voiceover. But it was actually Shane Rimmer who did it, which was kind of interesting because he did a couple Bond movies himself. Another one is the one that I think is probably the coolest is one my brother actually pointed out to me the other day, which I had no idea, but it does make a total sense. And I do remember this character. If you watched wrestling back in the early 90s, you remember a wrestler named Papa Shango.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So he was a voodoo guy himself. Well, they got that character from Jeffrey Holder's Baron Samedi. So Vince McMahon told Papa Shango, or told the guy playing Papa Shango, he told him to watch this movie, and that's how I want you to act. So you see the way Baron Samedi moves around. That's why you see that's why I saw Papa Shango kind of do that. Hunched over, be real sneaky and stuff.
Out garage.
Yeah, and obviously he went on to be like, Kama, the Godfather, and all that stuff. But his first run in the WWF at that time was as Papa Shango. And actually, one more thing too. Like, there was a guy who was considered for the role of James Bond, who was English. His name was Michael Billington, and a lot of people probably don't know who he is because he didn't do a lot, but he was a front runner for him. But he was, if you remember the very beginning of The Spy Who Loved Me, when they first showed Triple X, he was the guy that was Triple X's romantic interest.
Okay.
Who Bond ended up killing in the first scene. But that guy, Michael Billington, was one of the front runners also to play James Bond, but didn't get it because I guess Roger Moore just beat him out for it. But they did bring him back, like I said, later on for a couple movies later for The Spy Who Loved Me.
Very cool. Well, that you laid down the trivia, my man. That was some good stuff right there. The World Trade Center, the top of it, that was interesting. I did not know that. Or the Papa Shango thing.
Never noticed it until
I put two and two together, but I didn't know it officially. So very cool info. And which kind of slowly brings us to the end of our episode here. I mean, next time we're going to be bringing, what is it, The Man with the Golden Gun? Is that where we're at?
Very mixed bag with that one. But yes, it's a man with a golden gun.
Christopher Lee. We can't wait to CCC, Christopher Lee. Can't wait.
Lee.
Tomorrow night, at the show, we're going to be back with our 101st episode, and we're 5 and 5. We're picking thrillers, movie thrillers. That's personally probably one of my favorite genres. Not quite horror, not action, like thrillers where there's mystery sometimes, like, of course, give you an example, something along the lines of like Seven, something along like that's not one of our picks tomorrow, but those type of movies is what we were picking. You got a favorite thriller?
A lot of mine might be more of the noir era back in the 40s and 50s.
Give me one. Just give me one. I
love Double Indemnity. That's a pretty popular one. When I think of thrillers, Where the Sidewalk Ends with Dana Andrews. See, I kind of think that I kind of gravitate more toward those. But I mean, there's a lot of new ones that are great too. But I mean, those are the ones that kind of first come to mind.
See, I get ridiculous. Like, I'm a big Fatal Attraction, Basic Instinct.
Did you watch the Fatal Attraction show, by the way?
I did.
I thought it was pretty good. It was different. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. A real good movie I love with Harrison Ford, Presumed Innocent. They did a television show of that too. That was not bad. I've always been. That was like what I would watch with my mom, like the movies where you didn't know who it was at the end. And they used to make a lot more of them. They don't really make a lot of those movies anymore. But tune in to that tomorrow night. That's going to be really, really awesome. Also, go back and tune into some of the other awesome stuff on the Sadistic Penguin Studios YouTube channel. Frame to Frame this past Saturday just came out with a new video. It was the original Bad News Bears against the newest Bad News Bears with Billy Bob Thornton. Have you seen both of those, the original and the Billy Bob Thornton version?
Yeah, and I actually watched the original. The original was on Pluto the other day, so I was watching that.
Do
But
you
yeah.
like both of those, or would you say you do
No,
not
I
like?
do like. Yeah. The second one, see, the second one suffers from the fact that, like anything that's remade, you have to try to make up the first. I personally like Walter Matthau's depiction better. I mean, I've seen Billy Bob Thornton's depiction of, different characters and such, and he does a good job. But it's kind of like Billy Bob Thornton is, to me, is kind of become in a way like Denzel Washington, where Denzel's always being Denzel.
Yeah,
Like Billy Bob Thornton's always being Billy Bob Thornton.
he was in that movie.
Yeah, so it's like
What about William Devane? How do you feel about him in the sequels?
I'm sorry.
William Devane in the sequels, the Bad News Bears sequels.
He
You
was
ever see
fine.
the?
I guess it didn't stand up, but he was fine. It was as good as you could have done, to replace Walter Matthau. They weren't going to be great. They weren't going to be great, so they did what they could. And it was, like I said, it was fine.
And also, this next Tuesday on the It's Getting Drafty in here, I'm going to be on there. We're going to be drafting the best albums of the 80s. So that's going to be interesting to see what those picks are. Also, go to the sadisticpenguinstudios.com. There are awesome articles posted by a lot of us, and check that out. And we got a little something here before we roll out. Are you ready, my man?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So, first of all, I want to thank you guys for doing this. I really do appreciate it. We had to put my cat Orson, who was named after Orson Welles, and we had to put him down on Labor Day, and that was, if you know me and Tony, I know is the same way. We're big animal people. Animal deaths affect us as much, if not more, than human deaths, because animals are better people. So it affects us. And unfortunately, we had to do that. And just about a week prior to that, like 5 days prior to that, you see this dog right here. My fiance's daughter, her dog Cleo, finally had to be put down because she had lymphoma and she fought it off for over a year. She was only 3 years old. And she is my little force ghost right here. And this is Orson and me pretending this. I'm using AI to pretend that is Blofeld holding his cat. And Blofeld is now a Bears fan apparently as well, because that's how stupid I am. But that's my Orson man. And we brought him in, and from the porch, he probably wouldn't have survived another day. He was severely dehydrated. He had giardia, worms. He was anemic. He had FIV, feline HIV basically. And he started thriving, once we brought him in. And there is my little Orson Force ghost as well. He was thriving, and it was kind of a sudden thing that got him. He developed a blood clot that kind of paralyzed his back, and the prognosis for that was not very good. So that was probably one of the more difficult things I had to go through. Lord, since probably my father passed away. So as ridiculous as people may think that is animals, I know a lot of people, do agree with me too. So it was very tough to do. So I wanted to give them a nice Mark Maron-esque send off, saying Orson lives, so does Cleo, cat and dog angels forever.
Yeah. One of the things I want to say is, just to be fair, where's it at here? Where's the one that I love? Like this one right here, all day since you sent it to me.
That is
this badass photo right here. If we were in 1987, we could have got him to be the Toonces the cat. I know we could have on Saturday Night Live, because he's a badass dude. Don't ever be sorry, anybody out there, anybody to share anything about a pet, because honestly, our pets is what makes us get by every single day sometimes. And true story, last time when me and Adam went to a game, he told me the whole story about Orson. I went in and told Katie. I shared the news with Katie that Orson had passed away, and my wife, who's never met Orson, only heard the story through me, through Adam, was, you can tell, affected, because that's what animals do. As Adam said, they are important to us, and we care about them. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you so much for honoring our awesome cats and dogs here at the end. We appreciate it. And we will be back again in 2 weeks to talk more ridiculous James Bond, it sounds like. So everyone out there, take care, and you have a good rest of your week.